Have you ever felt like you were living just a few seconds ahead of everyone else? Like you could sense a shift in the air before anyone else noticed? Maybe you walk into a room and instantly feel that something's off, even though no one said a word. Or you meet someone for the first time and deep down, you already know who they are, long before they reveal it. That quiet, eerie accuracy, that's intuition. But for some people, it's not just a momentary spark. It's a way of life. Carl Jung called them the introverted intuitives. And if you're one of them, you know it's both a blessing and a burden. You live guided by an inner compass no one else can see. Your direction doesn't come from what's outside, the facts, the data, the opinions, but from what's within. You navigate through symbols, impressions, whispers from a part of reality that others don't even register. And while that can be profoundly beautiful, it can also be lonely. Because how do you explain to others something you feel but can't prove? How do you describe a world that exists inside you but not yet in time? The intuitive introvert doesn't live in the same psychological weather as most people. Others see rain or sunshine, you feel the storm forming before a single cloud appears. You sense what's about to unfold, sometimes days, sometimes years ahead of its arrival. You can almost hear the future humming behind the walls of the present moment. But here's the paradox: the more deeply you sense, the harder it becomes to function in a world that demands evidence. Society loves certainty, clarity, bullet points. And your world, your inner world, is made of metaphors, moods, and invisible threads connecting everything. Most people are trained to trust what they can measure. You trust what you feel. You might see patterns others miss, feel the undercurrent in a conversation that seems normal on the surface, or sense a collective shift before it shows up on the news. And while that might sound mystical, it's really just a different kind of perception. A radar tuned inward instead of outward. But when you live by that radar, life can get complicated. Because the world doesn't have much patience for what can't be explained. People might call you too sensitive, impractical, or even strange. You know what's even harder? You might start to believe them. You might begin to doubt your own compass. You learn to keep your perceptions quiet, to smile when others don't see what you see, to pretend that you're fine with small talk when your mind is scanning the symbolic meaning behind every word. You carry that sensitivity like a secret, hidden even from yourself sometimes. Because if you spoke openly about the things you sense, the subtle shifts, the dreams that feel more real than mornings, you'd risk being misunderstood. And misunderstanding can feel worse than rejection. Jung once said that this type perceives what is about to be but is not yet. That's a heavy thing to carry. It's like living on the border between two worlds, the one everyone sees and the one that's still being born. You feel the potential of things before they take form. The idea before it's an invention. The emotion before it's spoken. The change before it arrives. And that's not a coincidence, it's a psychic orientation. But it can make daily life hard. Because how do you live in the now when your soul keeps whispering about what's next? Imagine trying to explain color to someone who's never seen it. That's what it feels like trying to communicate what you sense to people who only believe in what's tangible. You're not trying to be mysterious. You're just wired differently. While most people move through the visible, you move through the meaning behind the visible. You catch the echoes of things before they sound. And when others dismiss that, it hurts, not because you need to be right, but because it confirms the gap you already feel between your world and theirs. But let me tell you this, that gap isn't a flaw. It's part of your design. You weren't meant to live by the same rules. The intuitive introvert isn't here to win the race of productivity or to collect trophies of logic. You're here to translate the invisible. To give shape to what hasn't yet been understood. You're the one who senses the undercurrent of a culture long before it's acknowledged. You're the artist who paints what people don't have words for yet. The thinker who perceives the pattern before science defines it. The friend who feels the unspoken sorrow in someone's smile. It's not that you're detached from reality, it's that your reality stretches beyond what can be seen. And while that can be isolating, it's also your gift. Every major transformation in human history began with someone who trusted a vision before it became visible. Someone who listened to an inner voice when everyone else said, "That doesn't make sense." From prophets to innovators to healers, the world changes because of those who can sense what others can't. So if you've spent your life feeling like you're not fully here, like you're living in a reality that doesn't quite match your depth, maybe you're not lost. Maybe you're just tuned to a different frequency. And instead of trying to fix that, maybe it's time to explore it. Because your perception isn't an error in the system. It's an early signal from the future, trying to find language through you. In a world obsessed with noise, your quiet sensitivity is not a weakness, it's a compass. The challenge isn't to silence it, but to learn how to read it, how to trust it, how to live with it in a society that glorifies certainty and speed. Being intuitive means you might not have all the answers, but you often carry the right questions. And those questions can open doors others don't even know exist. So as we begin this journey into the mind of the intuitive introvert, remember this: you are not strange for seeing what others miss. You are not broken for feeling what can't be measured. You are the bridge between the known and the unknown, between what is and what's coming. And the world may not always understand you, but it has always needed people like you. There's a strange paradox about being a deeply intuitive person. You can sense the invisible threads that connect everything, yet you often feel completely disconnected from everyone around you. It's like living between two frequencies, one that the world can hear, and another that only you can. You can pick up signals that others can't even detect. You can sense the truth behind someone's words, feel the shift in a conversation before it turns, see the collapse of a situation long before it happens. But the moment you try to explain it, people look at you as if you're speaking another language. That's the blessing and the curse of deep intuition. You can see what others don't, but you have to carry it alone until the rest of the world catches up. You live with one foot in the present and one foot in the possible. And that constant duality, being both here and somewhere beyond, creates an inner tension that can be exhausting. It's not arrogance. It's not imagination. It's perception. But the world doesn't give medals for invisible work. Society rewards what's visible: numbers, productivity, results. Meanwhile, your insights don't show up on spreadsheets. They come in flashes, gut feelings, dreams that refuse to leave you. They're not measured in hours but in depth. And that's why so many intuitive people end up feeling like they don't belong. Think about it. You sense a friend is in pain before they say a word. You know a job isn't right for you before the first interview. You can walk into a place and immediately feel the weight of something unspoken. Yet when you act on those feelings, others might call you irrational or dramatic. They don't understand that what feels obvious to you is invisible to them. It's like you're seeing the emotional weather forecast of the future, and they're still debating whether it's cloudy or clear. Jung understood this tension deeply. He described the intuitive introvert as someone who perceives what is about to be, but is not yet. You're tuned into possibilities, potentials, shifts that haven't yet taken form. That's powerful, but it's also isolating. Because how do you live in a world that runs on evidence when your whole being runs on foresight? You can't hand someone proof of a premonition. You can't present a graph of what you feel coming. So instead, you learn to keep quiet. You smile when people ask, "How could you possibly know that?" And you shrug, because trying to explain intuition to someone who doesn't experience it is like trying to describe music to someone who's never heard sound. And yet, you know you're not wrong. Your perceptions are confirmed again and again, sometimes painfully so. You sense when a relationship is dying before the breakup. You sense when a friend is drifting away long before they text less. You sense when the ground under your feet is about to shift, and when it finally does, there's that bittersweet moment of recognition: I knew this was coming. You were right, but it doesn't feel like victory. It feels like witnessing a storm you couldn't stop. That's the emotional cost of deep intuition. It keeps you ahead of time, but it also keeps you apart from it. You live like a translator between two dimensions, the visible world that demands clarity and the invisible one that whispers meaning. And this constant translation takes energy. It can drain you if you're not careful. Because when no one validates what you feel, you start questioning yourself. You start wondering if you're crazy for sensing what no one else can see. You start dimming your light just to blend in. But here's the truth. Intuition was never meant to fit neatly into society's boxes. It's not supposed to follow logic. It's supposed to guide you toward meaning. You are wired to perceive patterns before they form, to understand emotions that others haven't even processed yet. And while that can make everyday life confusing, it's also what makes you invaluable. The world may not reward that sensitivity, but it desperately needs it. Because every real change, whether personal, cultural, or spiritual, begins with someone who can feel what's coming before it arrives. Still, there's a danger in living too far in that future-oriented space. If you're always tuned into what's next, you can forget to live what's now. You can lose touch with the present moment, with your own body, with the simplicity of being here. You might find yourself constantly reading between the lines, analyzing everything, interpreting signs that maybe don't even exist. When that happens, intuition turns from a gift into a burden. It becomes a loop, a constant hum of meaning that never lets you rest. To live as an intuitive person, you have to learn balance, the art of visiting that symbolic world without moving in permanently. Because that world, as rich as it is, can swallow you whole if you let it. It can make you feel like a stranger in your own life. You need to keep one foot on the ground, not because the ground is better, but because without it, you'll drift. And when you drift, intuition stops being insight, it becomes noise. So how do you live between worlds without losing yourself? You start by accepting that the world may never fully understand how you see. And that's okay. You don't need everyone to believe you. You just need to believe yourself. You need to learn to trust that inner compass without needing it to be validated. You need to understand that intuition is not about control, it's about awareness. It's not about being right all the time, it's about being aligned. There will always be moments when your intuition feels like both a superpower and a curse. When it isolates you and saves you in the same breath. But the more you honor it, the more it starts to serve you rather than haunt you. You stop fighting it. You start working with it. You stop asking, why do I feel this way? And start asking, what is this feeling trying to show me? Living between worlds means you'll never be fully comfortable in either. You'll always sense more than others and explain less than you wish you could. But maybe that's not a flaw, it's a purpose. Because someone has to stand at the edge of what's coming. Someone has to see the shape of the invisible before it arrives. That's you. You are that bridge. You are that translator. You live between worlds so that others can one day see the one you already feel. And if that isn't a blessing, I don't know what is. There's a fine line between deep intuition and getting lost inside your own mind. For intuitive people, that line can disappear almost without notice. You start by following a feeling, a vision, an inner image that feels meaningful. And for a while, it guides you, it gives you purpose. But then, something shifts. The outer world starts to feel less and less real, and the inner world takes over. You begin to live more in your imagination than in your life. The same gift that once helped you understand things others couldn't begins to isolate you. It's no longer a compass. It's a maze. This is the danger Carl Jung warned about, the risk of being consumed by your own inner images. When your mind is constantly producing symbols, insights, dreams, and connections, you can start mistaking those inner movements for reality itself. You stop seeing symbols as representations and start treating them as facts. You stop interpreting the image, you start becoming it. Jung called this inflation, the moment when the ego identifies with something much bigger than itself, when you stop saying, I have a vision, and start saying, I am the vision. It's subtle, and it can happen to the smartest, most self-aware people, because it doesn't come from arrogance, it comes from loneliness. Think about it. You've spent years feeling misunderstood, sensing things others can't. You've learned that few people will truly get what you're trying to say, so you retreat inward. You build a private world where you don't have to explain yourself. And in that world, your imagination starts to flourish. It becomes your refuge. But after a while, that refuge turns into a fortress. The walls that were meant to protect you start keeping you in. You stop reaching out. You stop checking your ideas against reality. You start living entirely in your head. And here's the scary part, you don't even realize it's happening. Because it feels so rich, so meaningful, so true. That's what I call the inner labyrinth, the point where intuition, instead of guiding you toward truth, traps you in endless interpretation. You start reading meaning into everything, a stranger's glance, a flicker of light, a random coincidence. Every event becomes a sign. Every dream becomes a message. And at first, it's thrilling, it feels like the universe is speaking directly to you. But over time, that kind of hyper-awareness can turn into obsession. You can't turn it off. You start seeing connections everywhere, even when there are none. It's like being tuned into a frequency that never stops broadcasting. Jung once told the story of a patient who saw a black snake crawling up her body in a vision during therapy. Most people would have called that madness. But Jung saw it as a symbolic message from the unconscious, a sign of transformation. When that symbol was integrated, it became healing. But imagine if she hadn't shared it, if she had kept that image to herself, believing it was literally real. The symbol that could have saved her would have instead consumed her. That's the difference between integration and possession. The symbol either becomes a bridge to consciousness or it takes over completely. And that's the danger for intuitive types. When you stop translating your inner experiences into something tangible, art, writing, conversation, work, they start translating you. The images, the dreams, the intuitions, they don't go away when you ignore them. They grow stronger. They start demanding attention. They begin to define how you see the world. And when that happens, you risk losing the ability to tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. Isolation only deepens that confusion. The more disconnected you become from ordinary life, people, routines, the physical world, the easier it is for the mind to start spinning its own mythology. You begin to believe that your insights are sacred, that only you understand something others can't grasp. That belief may feel empowering at first, but it's a trap. It separates you further. It feeds the illusion that you've been chosen, that your solitude is proof of your higher purpose. But it's not. It's just loneliness wearing spiritual clothing. If you've ever felt like that, you're not alone. Every intuitive person faces that crossroads sooner or later. The question is, do you serve the vision, or do you become its servant? Do you use intuition as a way to expand consciousness, or do you let it pull you into a private fantasy that no one else can reach? It's easy to slip. You stop checking in with the world because the world feels too slow, too shallow, too dismissive. But that's exactly why you need it. You need contrast. You need grounding. Without it, you lose proportion. You lose balance. You lose yourself. The inner labyrinth isn't evil. It's a natural part of having a vivid inner life. But it becomes dangerous when you stop remembering that it's yours, that you are the observer, not the prisoner. The deeper you go into your inner world, the more important it becomes to have something that pulls you back, a friend who listens without judgment, a creative outlet, a daily ritual that connects you to the real world. Because intuition without expression becomes static. It doesn't grow. It doesn't transform. It just circles endlessly, feeding on itself. The truth is, no one can live entirely in the symbolic realm without paying a price. The same images that can heal and inspire you can also distort your sense of reality if you don't balance them with action. That's why so many creative, visionary people have walked that razor's edge between genius and collapse. They live too close to the fire of the unconscious without finding a way to release the heat. So if you find yourself lost in that labyrinth, if your intuition has become a storm instead of a compass, pause. Step outside. Touch something real. Cook. Walk. Talk. Create. The moment you bring even a fragment of that inner vision into the physical world, you start reclaiming your balance. Because the danger isn't in seeing too much, it's in seeing and never expressing. The danger isn't in feeling deeply, it's in never grounding those feelings in something real. Intuition is meant to guide you, not isolate you. Your inner world is a sacred place, but it's not the only place. You are both the dreamer and the one who wakes up. And the goal isn't to live entirely in one or the other, it's to learn how to move gracefully between them. Because when you do, your visions stop being prisons and start becoming pathways. The labyrinth becomes a map. And that's when intuition becomes what it was always meant to be, not a trap, but a bridge back to life. There comes a point when intuition can no longer stay trapped inside. The inner world becomes too full, too charged, too heavy with unspoken meaning. You start to feel like a volcano that's about to erupt, only what's inside you isn't fire, it's symbols, insights, ideas, and emotions that have nowhere to go. That's when you realize something essential. Intuition, no matter how deep or beautiful, means nothing if it never takes shape in the real world. It has to become something. Something you can touch, hear, or share. Because what doesn't find expression doesn't just disappear, it turns against you. It starts eating away from the inside. Carl Jung used to say that the unexpressed symbol becomes a foreign body in the psyche. It's like swallowing something that your system can't digest. If you don't find a way to process it, it stays there, stuck, fermenting, distorting your emotions and your sense of self. The only way to integrate an intuition, a vision, or an insight is to give it a body, to express it through word, image, gesture, or action. Expression isn't a luxury for intuitive people, it's survival. Look at the great intuitives in history. Vincent van Gogh didn't paint because he wanted fame. He painted because he had to. His inner world was bursting with colors, movement, and emotional electricity that ordinary words couldn't hold. His art wasn't decoration, it was translation. Each brushstroke was a conversation between his soul and the world. And even though he lived in torment, every time he painted, he reclaimed a piece of balance. Kafka did the same through writing. His nightmares became metaphors, his alienation turned into stories that spoke to the entire modern condition. Jung himself spent years filling notebooks with drawings, visions, and reflections that became the foundation of his life's work. They all understood one truth: the psyche needs an outlet, or it begins to collapse under its own weight. And no, you don't have to be a genius or an artist to do this. Expression isn't about talent, it's about release. It's about giving your inner world a place to breathe. It could be writing a page in your journal, painting something that no one will ever see, recording your thoughts, or even just speaking your truth to a friend who listens. It's about translating what's invisible into something that exists, even if only for a moment. When you externalize your inner vision, it stops haunting you. It starts helping you. The problem for many intuitive introverts is that they often underestimate how much expression they need. They think understanding their own thoughts is enough. But that's a trap. Understanding without expression is like lightning trapped in a bottle. It creates tension without release. The longer you hold it in, the more unstable you become. You start to feel restless, scattered, disconnected from reality. Your mind becomes a closed loop, echoing the same images and meanings without resolution. But the moment you give it form, through language, sound, movement, art, it transforms. It becomes energy in motion rather than energy in confinement. Here's what's even more powerful: when you express your inner world, you're not just healing yourself, you're contributing something to the collective. Every idea, every story, every piece of art that comes from a deep place becomes a mirror for others. What once isolated you now connects you. The thing that made you different becomes the very thing that makes others feel seen. That's how creativity becomes alchemy. Your solitude turns into empathy. Your silence turns into understanding. Think about how many lives have been touched by people who turned their private pain into public meaning. When you listen to a song that moves you, when you read words that make you feel less alone, that's someone else's intuition taking form. It's their inner world reaching into yours. That's the real power of expression. It bridges the invisible gap between souls. It's proof that what we carry inside can become light for someone else. But there's a warning here, too. Expression is medicine, not escape. Sometimes, when intuitive people start creating, they get addicted to the act itself. They turn creation into compulsion. They begin chasing inspiration instead of integration, using art or self-expression as a way to avoid their pain rather than transform it. True expression doesn't bypass reality, it brings you closer to it. The goal isn't to escape into your imagination, but to let your imagination touch the earth, to let it live through your hands, your voice, your body. Expression should connect you more deeply to life, not detach you from it. So what does this look like in everyday life? It's simpler than you think. You don't have to write a novel or paint a masterpiece. You can start by journaling before bed, capturing the moods, dreams, and insights that pass through you during the day. You can make small rituals out of your creativity, writing a few lines of poetry with your morning coffee, sketching while you think, recording a short voice memo about what you feel. The key is consistency. Regular expression keeps the channels open. It keeps intuition from stagnating. It turns chaos into coherence. And over time, you begin to notice something profound. Your vision stops feeling random. Your insights become clearer. Your inner world becomes a source of strength, not confusion. Because now, you're not just feeling deeply, you're creating meaning from what you feel. You're turning your private storm into art, your sensitivity into contribution. You're proving, to yourself and to others, that what happens in the invisible world can shape the visible one. Expression is how intuition matures. It's how you go from being overwhelmed by what you sense to being empowered by it. When you find the courage to bring your inner images into the light, they stop ruling you and start serving you. You stop being the passive receiver of impressions and become an active creator of reality. You start to live with purpose. So if you've been carrying visions you can't explain, ideas that won't leave you alone, emotions that feel too big for words, don't bury them. Don't wait for them to fade. Give them form. Write. Paint. Speak. Move. Create. Because the moment you do, you'll feel something shift inside, a release, a clarity, a peace. You'll realize that your intuition was never meant to isolate you. It was meant to inspire you. The healing begins the moment the invisible becomes visible. Let's be honest, living in your head can feel safer than living in the world. The inner world is familiar, rich, and filled with meaning, while the outer one often feels noisy, fast, and shallow. But there's a hard truth every intuitive person eventually faces: you can't stay up in the clouds forever. If intuition is your fire, the body is your hearth. Without grounding, even the brightest vision burns out. Without roots, even the most brilliant ideas drift away. Carl Jung said that for the intuitive type, the weakest psychological function is often sensation, the ability to stay connected to the body, the senses, and the here and now. And yet, that's exactly where balance begins. Because no matter how deep your insights go, you still live in a body. You still need food, rest, touch, and rhythm. You can't live entirely in the realm of symbols and archetypes without eventually losing your footing. The goal isn't to abandon your intuition, it's to give it a foundation strong enough to hold it. You can think of it this way: intuition is like a kite. It's meant to soar, to explore the heights of imagination and spirit. But a kite can't fly without a string holding it to the ground. That string is your body, your daily life, your routines, your connection to the physical world. Without it, your mind doesn't soar, it drifts, lost in the wind. You start feeling scattered, anxious, unanchored, like you're everywhere and nowhere at once. The antidote to that isn't more thought. It's sensation. It's presence. It's learning to be here, not just in mind, but in body. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Grounding isn't about becoming someone else or denying your spiritual depth. It's about weaving your intuition into the fabric of ordinary life. It's about remembering that washing the dishes, taking a walk, or feeling the warmth of sunlight on your skin can be just as sacred as meditation or analysis. It's about noticing texture, breath, gravity, the things that remind you you're alive. When you start paying attention to your senses, something remarkable happens. The chaos inside starts to settle. The noise becomes rhythm. The abstract becomes real. For intuitive people, routines can feel suffocating. You crave novelty, inspiration, mystery. But grounding doesn't mean dull repetition, it means creating rituals that nourish you. There's a big difference between routine and ritual. Routine is what you do because you have to. Ritual is what you do because it brings you back to yourself. Lighting a candle before you work, stretching before you write, walking at sunrise, tending to a plant, these small acts anchor your inner world to the outer one. They're reminders that meaning doesn't exist only in thought. It exists in the body, too. Sometimes, the simplest things are the most powerful. Cooking a meal with full attention. Drinking coffee without checking your phone. Breathing deeply when your thoughts start to spin out of control. These moments reconnect you to the present, to the ground beneath your feet. They remind you that intuition and sensation aren't enemies, they're partners. One sees the invisible, the other keeps you steady while you look. The danger of living too much in the mind is that everything becomes symbolic. You start interpreting instead of experiencing. You read meaning into the world instead of living it. You forget that a tree isn't just an archetype, it's a living being with roots, texture, and scent. You forget that life isn't a metaphor, it's happening right now, in this breath, in this heartbeat, in this moment. And if you can't feel that, intuition loses its anchor. It starts spinning stories without substance, visions without grounding. So here's the truth most intuitives resist. Balance doesn't come from more introspection, it comes from embodiment. You don't find grounding in thought. You find it in contact, with the earth, with people, with the real. It's what brings your intuition into alignment with the world instead of leaving it floating above it. When you're grounded, you don't stop being intuitive, you become effective. You start using your insights instead of being overwhelmed by them. Grounding also helps you see where your intuition ends and the world begins. Without that boundary, you absorb everything, every emotion, every signal, every piece of psychic static from people around you. You walk through life like a sponge, and it's exhausting. But when you're rooted in your body, you can feel empathy without drowning in it. You can observe energy without carrying it. You can sense deeply without losing yourself in the process. One of the best ways to stay grounded is to connect with nature. Go outside. Feel the wind, touch the soil, listen to the sounds around you. Nature speaks the language of sensation, it's the original grounding force. When you walk in a forest or sit by the ocean, your nervous system resets. Your thoughts slow down to the pace of the earth. You remember that you're part of something physical, not just something mental. The body relaxes, and intuition sharpens. Paradoxically, the more grounded you are, the clearer your intuition becomes. Because now it has something to return to. Another powerful grounding tool is movement. Dancing, yoga, running, even cleaning the house, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as your body moves. When energy flows physically, it stops building up psychically. You stop living entirely in your head and start inhabiting your full being. You start to feel that inner equilibrium between vision and presence, between the sky and the soil. And maybe that's the secret. You were never meant to choose between spirit and body, between intuition and reality. You were meant to bridge them. You were meant to bring the invisible down to earth, to make the unseen visible, the abstract tangible. That's what grounding does, it turns intuition into embodiment. It transforms thought into life. So if your mind has been spinning, if your visions feel like too much to carry, try starting small. Cook something from scratch. Go for a walk without your phone. Feel the air on your skin. Listen to the hum of the city or the stillness of the night. Anchor your awareness in this moment. Because the truth is, every insight needs soil to grow. Every vision needs a body to live through. You are both the dreamer and the doer, the sky and the ground. When you learn to live in both, life stops feeling like a tug of war and starts feeling like harmony. Let's talk about the hardest part of being a deeply intuitive person, not the visions, not the solitude, not even the inner battles. The hardest part is staying true to your inner truth in a world that measures everything by speed, visibility, and profit. It's living symbolically in a culture that worships the literal. It's trying to hold on to meaning when everything around you screams, be productive, not profound. And yet, that's exactly what makes your path both difficult and sacred. Because living symbolically today is an act of rebellion, a quiet one, but no less powerful. We live in a time obsessed with evidence. If it can't be tracked, quantified, or monetized, it's dismissed. But intuition doesn't show up in spreadsheets. The soul doesn't post analytics. Meaning doesn't go viral. So what happens? People stop trusting what can't be measured. They start mistaking noise for truth, visibility for value, constant motion for progress. And if you're someone who sees beyond that, you start to feel out of place, maybe even invisible. You start wondering if there's something wrong with you for wanting more depth when everyone else seems perfectly content skimming the surface. But here's the truth you need to hear: there's nothing wrong with you for not fitting in. In fact, your discomfort is a sign that you're still awake. You haven't surrendered your inner compass for the illusion of belonging. You still care about meaning, not just metrics. And that's rare, but it's also what makes you necessary. Because the world doesn't just need more people doing, it needs people who remember why they're doing it. To live symbolically means to move through life with awareness. It means seeing through appearances, remembering that everything, every moment, every challenge, every person, carries a deeper meaning. It means not just reacting to life, but listening to it. You see, the intuitive mind doesn't just want to survive in this world, it wants to interpret it, reveal it, humanize it. That's why you can't just go along with the noise. You need silence. You need reflection. You need purpose. And when you hold on to that in a culture that celebrates distraction, that's a form of spiritual resistance. But this resistance isn't loud or dramatic. It doesn't need slogans or movements. It's quiet. It's how you choose to start your day, with intention instead of urgency. It's how you choose to speak, with truth instead of performance. It's how you treat others, with empathy instead of transaction. These things may look small from the outside, but symbolically, they're massive. Because every time you choose depth over speed, connection over convenience, authenticity over approval, you're reclaiming a piece of your soul from a world that keeps trying to buy it. And yes, it's lonely sometimes. There will be days when you feel unseen, when the things that matter to you don't seem to matter to anyone else. There will be moments when you'll wonder if you're wasting your life trying to build meaning in a culture that runs on attention spans. But I promise you this, every act of genuine awareness has ripple effects you'll never fully see. The way you live quietly with integrity may inspire someone years from now. The kindness you show today may heal a stranger tomorrow. The words you write, the art you make, the way you listen, those things matter. They plant seeds in a barren world. Living symbolically doesn't mean you withdraw from life, it means you engage with it differently. You don't need to move to a cabin in the woods or reject modern life. You just need to stay awake within it. You need to let your intuition guide you through the chaos without losing your grounding. You need to live in a way that honors both your soul and your schedule. Balance doesn't mean compromise, it means alignment. It's knowing that you can work a job, pay bills, raise kids, and still live meaningfully, still notice the sacred in the ordinary. Because the sacred isn't somewhere else, it's right here, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone like you to recognize it. Jung called this process individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming who you truly are, not who the world tells you to be. For the intuitive introvert, individuation isn't just personal, it's symbolic. It's about becoming a living bridge between the visible and the invisible, between what is and what could be. It's about holding the tension between those worlds without collapsing into either one. That's not an easy task. But that's what gives it meaning. You might not always see the impact of living this way, but it's real. When you choose awareness over apathy, compassion over cynicism, authenticity over conformity, you become a quiet force for transformation. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs presence. It needs people who can walk through chaos and still carry calm. It needs people who can sense the truth beneath the surface and remind others that there's more to life than the next deadline or the next dopamine hit. So don't apologize for being different. Don't shrink your depth to fit someone else's comfort. Don't dull your sensitivity because others can't handle it. Your perception of meaning, the way you see symbols where others see nothing, that's not weakness. That's wisdom. You were given that ability for a reason. You're here to remind the world that we're not machines, we're souls. To live symbolically in a practical world is to live with both feet on the ground and your heart pointed toward the unseen. It's to recognize that success without purpose is just noise, that progress without depth is just motion. It's to remember that the small, mindful choices you make, how you speak, how you love, how you show up, carry energy that shapes reality in ways data never could. And maybe the greatest act of rebellion today isn't shouting your truth, it's living it. Quietly. Consistently. Courageously. It's refusing to let the world make you numb. It's daring to care in a culture that rewards indifference. It's walking through the noise with a calm center, knowing that even if no one understands your language, the soul does. So if you ever doubt your place in this fast, loud, transactional world, remember this: the fact that you still feel deeply, still search for meaning, still believe in something more. That's your proof that you're alive in the truest sense. You're not here to keep up with the world. You're here to remind it to slow down, to look inward, to remember. Living symbolically is not retreat, it's leadership. The quiet kind. The kind that doesn't need recognition. The kind that changes everything simply by being real. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this journey. I know your time is valuable. If this message spoke to you, if it gave you even one moment of clarity or peace, I'd be grateful if you'd let me know. A simple like, a comment with your thoughts, or subscribing to the channel helps this community grow, and it helps more people who might need these words to find them. Share your reflections below, I do read them. I'll see you in the next chapter. Until then, take care of your peace.